We're facing today challenges that generations before couldn't even begin to fathom. And we ourselves couldn't begin to fathom the absolute, like, mishugas, if you will, that's just all over. And it's sometimes very difficult to accept when you realize exactly what's going on out there. And I mean, like, the other day I had a conversation with someone, and, like, you know, his marriage is not working. So he's in a challenging space in the marriage. And the challenges that are going through, the demons, what they call trauma nowadays, is harsh. So he's got trauma, real trauma, and she has real trauma. And so there's what he needs out of the marriage, and he can't get it out of the marriage, so she's not giving it to him. So, you know, he's going to try and find what he needs elsewhere. And he's in the middle of like the conversation and going on, and like, you listen to the level, and in front of me is someone who's just a good person, a spiritual person, a person who's plugged in, really connected, and really in touch with what's going on in his life, and asking for help. He's like, help me, get me out of this. I don't know what to do here. Like, once upon a time, when you did something wrong, at least you did something wrong. You know, you went off. Nowadays, it's almost like there's this inner demon inside of us, and we ourselves don't know how to control it. And every one of us gets in touch with that inner demon. It's when you get to an addiction stage and you don't know how to help yourself, and you find yourself stuck, and you really, really don't want to be here, and then you don't know what to do. You don't know how to get out of it. And sometimes there's things you hear in the news, and the news is just like far out there. It's like, yeah, you know, there's these mishugasim going on in the world, and then you discover that your own child has those mishugasim built into them. You know, we had last night over here, we had a suicide prevention class. And just the fact that you have that kind of class, that you need to have that kind of class, is real. And, like, who's coming to a suicide prevention class? Most people don't know they need suicide prevention classes until chas v'shalom is too late, because it's all about prevention, right? So the day before the prevention, you don't think you're in that category, and you don't realize it. But we see it all over, and it's like, what? Why would someone take their own lives? It's so difficult for us to accept. So, tonight is a special day. It's called Yud Shvat. Yud Shvat, the 10th day of Shvat, is the day that in 1950 the Rebbe Rayatz, the previous Rebbe, passed away. And a year later, the Lubavitcher Rebbe assumed the mantle of leadership on that day, on Yud Shvat. There was a Farbrengen, and the Hasidim were pushing, let's go, accept. And for a whole year he refused, and on Yud Shvat he accepted it. What happened was, when the Rebbe Rayatz passed away, he wasn't speaking because he was suffering a lot in the end of his life, and he couldn't speak. So instead of speaking, he was writing discourses. And he gave out a mimer, a discourse, for Yud Shvat, which he prepared before. I mean, there was, for a whole year afterwards, there was still discourses coming out, which he had pre-prepared. The one that came out for Yud Shvat was titled באתי לגני אחותי כלה. And so that became those words, which are from Shir Hashirim, from the Song of Songs, and the explanation of that became almost like a tzava'ah, like a last will and testament, like this is the message for our generation. And so when the Rebbe afterwards became Rebbe, every year on that day on Yud Shvat, he would say a discourse. And the original Maimer had 20 chapters in it. So for the next 20 years, he went through each one of those chapters every year, another chapter. When he finished 20 years, he started again and did it again. And so now being the year Tafshin Pei Gimel, if we keep on doing that 20-year cycle, well, we're 40 years away from 1983. What I want to share with you today is the Maimer, the discourse that was said 40 years ago in 1983, 5783, Tafshin Mem Gimel, and there he addressed this question, addressed this very issue of how do you handle this inner demon. And it's always amazing to look at something. It says, the rabbis tell us, Achrei 40 shana kaim inish adate de rabbi. After 40 years, you begin to understand what your Rebbe was saying. Well, it's 40 years from that discourse. Maybe 40 years, now we can begin to understand what was actually said during that discourse 40 years ago. And so, let's jump in. Let me give you first the overview of what it's about. So the overview is that the Shekhinah, the presence of Hashem, the Medrash tells us, this Medrash quotes this verse, Bati legani achoti kala. I came to my garden, my sister, my bride. The presence of the Shekhinah was revealed when Hashem came to the garden. That was when Hashem gave the Torah to the people of Israel. Now Hashem is being revealed in this world. But notably, he says, Bati legani. I came to my garden. My garden? What do you mean? You don't mean to say the garden? Bati lagan? Legani implies that was your garden from before. It was already mine. And what he explains is that the garden is this world. The world you see around you is actually a garden of Hashem. And Hashem's presence, when the Torah was given, it was not the first time Hashem's presence was revealed. The first time was on day one of creation. When Hashem created the world, the Shekhinah, the presence of Hashem, was right here in this world. And then there was a series of seven transgressions that pushed the Shekhinah away from this world. So there's 7 heavens and the earth. That's why we say in Shema, Hashem Echad, and you're supposed to think that Hashem is Aleph, Chet, Daled. He's 1 in the 8 and 4. What's the 8? The 8 is the 7 heavens and earth. And the 4 is the 4 directions. There are 7 heavens. So 7 transgressions pushed the Shekhinah out. The first one was, of course, Chet Eitzadat. When Adam and Eve ate from that fruit, it says afterwards that they heard the voice of Hashem walking through the garden. But it doesn't say the word mehalech, it says mithalech. He was trotting. What in fact happened was the Shekhinah was pushed out of this world. Hashem's presence was here, and Hashem was pushed out of this world. That's what happened. Then there were another 6 transgressions that pushed the Shekhinah further out. So let's say Cain killed Hevel. Now the Shekhinah goes from the 7th heaven to the 1st heaven to the 2nd heaven. And then you have, there was the Sodom V'Amorah. Let's count them, not in order. Sodom V'Amorah is the 3rd one. And then there's the Egyptians in the times of Abraham. That's why we're number 7. So we have 4 so far. Then there's the generation of the flood, the generation of the Tower of Babel, and then we have you'll count 7 altogether. We got 6 there.
What did they do?
Each one, the Mitzrayim were shtufei zima, they were immoral, and so there's altogether 7 of them. And if you count them, they pushed the Shekhinah out. Then came about face. Now let's go and push the Shekhinah back down. So the Shekhinah is as far out as you can get from this earth, on the 7th heaven. What we want to do now is bring the Shekhinah back down. So there were 7 righteous individuals who brought the Shekhinah back down. Each one brings another level down. Avraham Avinu brought the Shekhinah from level 7 to level 6. Yitzchak, 1 more. Yaakov. And then the generations, the leader of the generation was Levi, then his son Kehas, then his son Amram. And now the Shekhinah is back down to the lowest heaven. Now someone needs to push the Shekhinah down to earth. Who's that someone? Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu brings the Shekhinah right down to earth, and that's why it says, Vayered Hashem al Har Sinai, that the Shekhinah descends all the way down to Mount Sinai. And it comes right down here into this earth. Now the question is, okay, so what do we do? How do we keep the Shekhinah down on this earth? What do we have to do to maintain the presence of the Shekhinah? And the answer to that question is, we build a Mishkan. What's a Mishkan? Mishkan is like Shekhinah, the same word. So we're going to have a host, a place to house the Shekhinah. And that's called the Mishkan. That's why there's such extensive discussion about how to build a Mishkan, because what is the Mishkan? It's the home for the Shekhinah in this world. The Shekhinah wants that not there should just be a Mishkan, one place, one home in this world, but rather we're going to get this, we're going to flip it over completely. We're not going to build a home for Hashem in this world, rather we're going to make the world into Hashem's home. The whole world is Hashem's home. So think about it this way. The reason why people have trouble in this world and problems is because of how we frame and view what happens in the world. It all depends on your frame. And if you want to flip the frame, you can change your life completely. Nothing needs to change in your life. No thing needs to change in your life. What needs to change is your perspective. If you ever seen art, a real painter, what they do is they're able to paint a scene and they're able to express and communicate their feeling in the art. And a true artist is one whose power is, he looks at a scene and he takes his feeling that he has. So hopefully he's in a good space. If he's in a good space, what you'll see is he will focus on the good. Right? Photography also does that in a certain way, although not quite as the real deal. The real deal is it's phenomenal because when you're able to paint like an oil painting or any one of these paintings, you're not painting reality. Because what the eye sees and what the painting paints are totally different things. The painting is perception. It's your viewpoint which is expressed and communicated. How do you view this? And that's the key over here. What we want to do is learn how to paint. We want to become artists. We want to be able to paint the world with Hashem's light, with Hashem's art. And when you can do that, and when you flip your perception, the way you view things, you'll see everything in the world changes. So, two people could be looking at the same image, and one sees all good, and the other one does not. And the difference is perception. What we're going to do today is follow that discourse, where what he did was present, it's really 10 artists who helped us paint a picture. And each one of the artists contributes another dimension to the beautiful art. In the 10 artists, there's actually 10 artists with 8 principles that I found. And I want to share with you today what was shared in that discourse in 1983. How do you paint an image? What's our goal? Our goal is to build a mishkan. Our goal is to build what's called a dira betachtonim. That means a home in this lowly world. Not just to build a home in the world, but rather to transform the world into a home for Hashem. So if you look at the Mishkan, how do you build a Mishkan? The parameter of the Mishkan was a special type of wood. It's called shittim wood, atzei shittim. And they took those atzei shittim and from it they made krashim. Krashim are beams. You and I want to do the same thing. What we want to do is take our lives, take the world, and change the shittim. We want to carve out a space using shittim wood, carve out a space in our lives for Hashem's presence to be revealed in us. That's the painting. That's the art. That's the work, to find Hashem in your life, to be able to see how your life is actually very meaningful and how Hashem is being revealed every moment of your life. And when you do that, you build yourself a real deep meaning and a simcha. Simcha, inner joy, doesn't come from things changing. It comes from you changing. And then, when you change, you start seeing the outside world in that light. So, let's try build a mishkan figuratively. Let's paint a painting. The shittim, the word shittim, which is a type of wood, has another meaning. Because every word in Lashon HaKodesh, in the Holy Tongue, is important. And so the word shittim is very similar to the word shtut, shtuyot. What is that? Nonsense. Shtus. The world is full of shtuyot. A lot of it. Those shtuyot, that nonsense of the world, that stupidity of the world, can be harnessed and transformed, and you can actually discover how to make it into a painting. So that instead of it bringing you down, when you look at the craziness that goes on in the world, that craziness, if you carve out a space in that craziness, you'll find Hashem's presence in front of you. The shittim wood, the shtuyot themselves, can be made into the parameter of the Mishkan, of this home for Hashem. And that's why, what do they make the shittim wood into? They made it into beams. What's a beam in Hebrew? Keresh. Krashim. Note how the word keresh has the letters kuf, resh, and shin. Spells another word. Sheker. Sheker and keresh are the same exact letters flipped over. The world is full of sheker, full of lies and deceit. The stupidity, the shittim wood, makes a sheker. But if you know how to build, and if you're an artist, then when they say shittim, you see beams to build the Mishkan. You see opportunity to build Hashem's presence. And when they say lies, you see beams. Sheker is keresh. That's how we paint. We paint by changing and looking at things in a new light. So what we're going to go do is look at these 10 painters and discover how each one helped us to shape reality around us. And this is not about your ability to be optimistic and happy even in the face of negative. This is about your realization that you're carrying a magic wand in your hands. And when you paint, the painting becomes the reality. Because the people out there see what you painted and they live their life in that vein. And so what we're doing is not just painting for the sake of painting, but it's painting for the sake of actually transforming the world. So you ready? Okay, let's jump in. What happens to a person when he's cornered? What happens to a person when they're stuck? When they have no choice? And they're pressured and stressed from all angles? So imagine yourself and imagine what happens in those moments when you are absolutely finished. When you're on the ground, you're being punched and another punch. And the problem is some of the punches come outside. Some of the punches are inside you. It's very difficult to fight someone who's inside you. Like a little crazy man, a meshugana, inside your own head. And he's the one who's fighting you. And you're struggling to keep your head above water. It's like, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to win? How am I supposed to be victorious over here? But what you'll discover is that when people are pressured and stressed and see no way out, what happens to them is something phenomenal. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. There is a midah, an attribute called netzach. What's netzach? Victory. Netzach is this power, lenatzeach. So I'm not letting go. I'm not allowing this impossible situation to break me. In the words of the prophet Shmuel HaNavi, he says, "Gam netzach Yisrael lo yeshaker." The netzach of a Jew will never lie. So think about a king who's pressured and he's pushed to a corner and he's got an enemy that's attacking him and there's nothing he can do. And so he's stressed beyond stress because they're about to defeat his kingdom. You know what the king does? He could look at himself and say, uh-oh, and then get depressed. And then he gets easily overrun and easily be forced to surrender. He's completely vanquished and conquered. But what the king does is he says, hold on, I don't want to lose this battle. And I have treasures deep inside that I never would use under normal circumstances. I have a treasury that I would never open. But if I'm forced and there's nothing else, there's no other solution, I'm going to force myself to look into my own treasury in order to bring out the deepest, innermost treasures I would never reveal in any other situation. So the king goes to the treasury which he would never open and uses it in a simple way to give the funds to the army in order to be able to fight the battle. We are now in that space. Hashem is trying to be king. In history, there were much easier times when Jews were more plugged in. They were more connected. Just a fact. When there was a Beit HaMikdash, when there was a temple, it was so much easier to see Hashem. You just saw God everywhere. It's great. Even later on in history, imagine there were times when we had real great people. There were times when they were prophets. There were times they were writing the Mishnah, the Gemara. They were Rishonim. They were the Rambam and the Rishonim, Rashi. Imagine those kind of times. And look at history as you get further and further and further down in history. Up until our times, what do you see? Nothing out there today. We don't have that caliber of people. There are no real Moshe Rabbeinus out there. And what we have is just the struggle with nothing else. But guess what? When we reach the lowest ebb, the lowest point, Hashem says, okay, got to win this battle. Time to take out all my deepest treasures. It's time to discover forces and strength inside you that you never knew possible. When the going get tough, the tough get going. That's in our lives too. Sometimes things are just good, and sometimes you hit such a rock bottom, you don't know what to do with yourself. When you hit rock bottom, you're not at the bottom, you're actually at the deepest, innermost space, where Hashem is about to release his treasures. His deepest treasure he's about to release to allow you to overcome, and not just to overcome, but to win. And so whenever you come to a point and you say, uh-oh, we are at the lowest place in history, know that Netzach Yisrael lo yeshaker. Judaism is real. God is real. And he's real even to us. In fact, more than ever to us. But in order to overcome this battle, we have no choice but to get all the guns, the blazing guns out. And so the 10 painters, what they did was, they're going to help us reveal the Netzach, this powerful, incredible midah, incredible force inside of us. Help us to reveal it. Help us to discover inside of us. And through that, discover the greatest powers of Hashem. And so our generation is not at the lowest place. It's actually at the most incredible, unbelievable space. Because there's no choice. And Hashem is about to release all the powers. And when your life feels over, and it feels like there's no more hope, instead of falling into a depression, let's see how we could repaint the image. And then you'll discover that there's things you never knew existed. And suddenly you harness the power of God, and you will actually physically see a transformation. You'll see things you'll be blown away by the hand of Hashem, and like, wow, how'd that happen? And it was so easy and so simple. All it takes is our ability to discover the netzach, the treasures inside of us, to find Hashem's presence, because we are, make no mistake, in the words of the Pasuk, Yotzu kol tzivois Hashem me'eretz Mitzrayim. We are the army of Hashem. That's what we are. We're an army. And the king, Hashem, needs to empower us to be able to overcome, and to overcome all the challenges and all the difficulties that we have out there. Who is Who's the force that we're encountering? We're going to give him a name, because it's much easier when you have names. Like, label the guy. Let's understand who he is. What's the problem that we have? We're going to say like this. It's like, anthropomorphize life. So take these little forces inside you and give them a name. What's the name of the worst possible situation you've ever faced? Can we give him a name? What do we call him in the Torah? Who is the king? Meaning the worst possible force, the king of all the resistance that there is out there. What we're going to give him a name? Paroi. Paro. Who's Paroi? He's the king of Mitzrayim. So we were locked up in Mitzrayim. And the king is Paroi. Now let's delve a little bit into who this fellow Paroi is. Paroi had a system. He considered himself a god. So he told all his people, I'm God. One of the methodologies he used for that is that he never went to the bathroom. Because gods don't go to the bathroom. That's why whenever Moshe encounters him, where does he go meet him? In the bathroom, by the River Nile. Like, hey, caught you red-handed, right? When you were going and nobody was noticing. Yep, I got you. What does that mean in our lives? Paroi is a force which the prophet says, the prophet Yechezkel, he says, Paroi is the one who says, Li ye'ori va'ani asitini. The Ye'or, the River Nile, is mine, and I made myself. I am a god. In other words, it is the ultimate ego. That's what Paroi is. You and I encounter the Paroi all the time. You ever met Paroi? You meet him, never mind you meet him outside. You know how when you're wondering sometimes, when they talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the two sides, and you're like, what? What two sides? These guys are murdering us, and we're just trying to stay alive and normal, and you're telling me there's two sides, two-state solution. Are you insane? And we have to explain this? You don't notice? You don't realize it? Yep. That's Paroi. He's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And somehow, you have to actually go on a PR campaign to explain what appears to be so obvious. But Paroi is inside your head too. You ever encountered Paroi? You know you shouldn't, and you do it anyway. Like when they put a good Danish in front of you, and you know what the ramifications of a Danish are, and you still are tempted, and then you forget it, I'm just going to do it, and then afterwards worry about it, and you wish it was just the Danish. Paroi is like this addictive force inside you, where you know better, and you know you shouldn't, and you do anyway, and he's got you locked up in prison, and you don't know how to escape. This force inside you is just so difficult to overcome, so simple. What's with you? And you just don't know how to overcome it. When you see it in someone else, you're like, what are you talking about? You're addicted to that? Just stop it. They're like, I don't know how to stop. Paroi in action. That's the Paroi who's locked up, got you locked up in prison, and you can't escape. And you don't know how to get out. And it's so harsh. What's with me? Yeah. Paroi's got you in his clutches. Step one, the first painter who entered the scene when things were getting really bad in history. It was in the 1700s. His name was the Baal Shem Tov. And he said, let's paint. Let's look at the world and see things in a new light. Because we want to win the war against Paroi. We want to be able to just destroy our inner Paroi. And it's very nice to say, destroy. Here's the how-to. There is a verse, a pasuk in Tehillim, which says, Sur meira va'asei tov, which are typically translated as, stop doing bad and do good. The Baal Shem Tov says, let's paint. let's do some art. Sur Meira means turn away from the bad. And then take the bad, Vasei Tov. It's not turn away from bad and do good. Two separate things. It's turn away from looking at things in a bad light, darkness. Start looking at them as good. It's how you label things. Nothing is bad. Stop looking at it as bad and start looking at it as good. Sur Meira is how you view things. So whenever you look at something and you say, this is harsh, then it's harsh. But if you look at it and you say, this is an opportunity to reveal Hashem in places where He's never been before, now you have an opportunity. It always amazes me how when someone says, like, oh, I never put tefillin on in my life. What is that? It's like, oh yeah. So now I can get what's called a karkafta. Karkafta is a skull that never put on tefillin. And there's no greater mitzvah than finding a Jew who never put on tefillin, putting tefillin on him. So instead of me looking at the person as a person who never put on tefillin, I'm like, it's a person who I can get to put on tefillin the first time in his life. Amazing. Imagine you look at your child that way. Meaning, when a child doesn't want to put on tefillin, so you look at it and say, oh my gosh, where did I go wrong? You see how the image gets painted wrong? And now you get all upset and angry and you cause a fight for no reason. What if you would say, oh wow, there is an opportunity to reveal Hashem in a place where it wasn't there before. It's so amazing. Instead you start looking at, how can I help this person? Imagine it wasn't your child. So just help them. Unbelievable. Simple. Sur Meira, stop looking at things in a negative way and start looking at things as positive. Step one. Artist number 2 was the successor of the Mizritcha Magid, of the Baal Shem Tov. His name was the Mizritcha Magid. And he says an interesting thing. He says, you've got to be able to learn how to say, no matter what happens, train yourself to say these words. It's always working out for me. It's always working out for me. No matter what happens, find the good in the worst scenario. No matter what happens, you find the good. It's unbelievable. Sometimes we look at things and you always look at it in a negative way. There are sparks in everything. Spark means holiness. There's something amazing in everything. What's amazing about getting a ticket? Come by and then, and they give you a ticket. So you're going to have to work hard. But you have to find what's amazing about having a ticket. You know what's first amazing about it? What? Well, it's an opportunity to practice how angry you get. Because you do know that you can't make more money than Hashem gave you to make for the year. So there's no such thing as a ticket. It's not possible to, at the end of the year, you'll end up with the same amount of money. You're not making more. So nothing happened. So what is a ticket? It's an opportunity for you not to get angry. Awesome. What he says is, in the Torah it says, Hashem says, I'm going to bring 3 more makois. I'm going to bring 3 more plagues. And the reason Hashem tells Moshe is, Leman shiti ototai eile bekirbo. Because I want to make some more miracles. But the word ototai is also letters. I got some more letters, some more ideas, some more sparks that I want to be refined in the world. And inside Paroi, there's more stuff to be done. Start looking at anything that happens and realize it is an opportunity to reveal Hashem's presence. Have fun, enjoy the ride, and watch how you'll always see good things happening to you. It's sometimes unbelievable how when you start looking at life in that kind of thing, you're always looking for the good things. The other day I was driving, I was at a hotel, and I was, I packed everything, to get out, and I'm leaving with my wife, and we're getting out, and then I do a double, triple, quadruple check of everything, and of course, we're all good. Done. So I'm leaving the hotel and going. and I'm getting out, and you train yourself, and whatever Hashem does is good, so it's all great. So you're in that zone. And as I'm driving out, I'm like driving out of the hotel, I'm like, am I tefillin in the car? And then, and my wife tells me like, no, I didn't see them. I don't think so. So I stopped the car, looked back, didn't find the tefillin. So I'm at leaving the parking lot. So I drove back, went back into the hotel, asked them for another card to go check the room. And what did I check? That, I was so busy checking everything that what I did was I took the bed covers and I covered over. So I put my tefillin on the bed to check under the bed to see if there's anything left over. The tefillin was on the bed. And then I'm like, wow. So I'm leaving and I'm saying, it's amazing. Like, how did I remember as I'm driving out to think about my tefillin? It's always working out for me. Now, you could also say, so stupid. Why could you do such a dumb thing? But if you train yourself to get into this mode of thinking of it's always working out, you'll watch how it's always working out. Literally, no matter what happens, it's always working out. And you want to be able to see the things that are not good. Whenever something happens that's not good, step one is relabel it. There's no bad here. Sur meira v'asei tov. Make the bad into good. Step two is realize there's always sparks of something amazing that's happening over here in everything. And you look for how amazing it is. When you get a ticket, jump for joy and say, what's good here? What can I see that's good here? Always, what do I see that's good? And you'll see that there's something special going on in your life. And that's reframing. Let's go deeper. So, when Hashem tells Moshe to go to Pari, Hashem says, go to Pari and tell him, let my people go. The Zohar says, Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid. He was afraid of this snake. He said, I don't know what to do. I can't handle him. I'm scared. So what did Hashem do? Hashem said, you know what? I'm going to go with you. That's why it doesn't say, Lech el Paro. It says, Bo el Paro. The word Bo is come, implying let's go together. Go means you go. Bo means let's go. So Hashem said he's going with you. You'll notice that whenever you have a pari in your life, it's very, very scary. You know what a pari is? Pari is that little guy who's keeping you in prison. You know what pari often is? It's when you're not willing to admit what's really blocking you. Watch a couple, how they argue. You know what you'll see? One of them is jealous of some, So she'll tell him, you're just jealous of that person. What's he going to say? I'm not jealous. When you're feeling a feeling and you're trying to run away from it and you refuse to admit it, that's Paro. He got you in his clutches. You see the king of Mitzrayim? He's got you locked up because you don't want to admit, because you refuse to be vulnerable. The second you're able to be vulnerable, Paroi has no power over you. You're just jealous. That's true, I am. Oh, jealous. Yeah. You seem to think that's a problem. Do you see how when you admitted it, suddenly the balloon is bust? Like, well, now what? So what? So what? What we want to do is walk into Paroi using the power of Hashem. That means face all your challenges and realize you don't need to be perfect. There's no virtue to be perfect. The virtue is to draw Hashem with you. Now here's a phenomenal, it's a tool which we use. It's so liberating when we realize that you have this power inside you. We spoke about it last time, right? You know how when you're having let's say the economy is down, and you don't know what to do. So you're lost because everyone's telling you people are losing money and you're scared and you don't know what am I going to do about this? And you find yourself just afraid and stressing out and overcompensating with work. Hashem says, whenever you have something that's stressing you out, your paroi, give it to me. I'm going to do the work. Give it over to God. Heard that statement? Let's learn how to do that. What does it mean to give it over to Hashem? It means don't battle paroi on his turf. Battle paroi in the Torah, in divine turf. You're anxious over the market? You're worried? Instead of working over the market, work on your anxiety. That's what it means. Why are you anxious? Clearly, if you're anxious, why am I anxious? There's two reasons why I'm anxious. The reason why I'm anxious is because I'm losing money. Haven't you noticed that like every deal I'm doing is losing? That's one way. The other way is, you know why you're anxious? Because you're not trusting in Hashem. That's why. You don't have Hashem's presence. You don't feel like you're being embraced by Hashem at that time. So there's two ways you could choose to work. You could either choose to work out in the open and go make more money and make more deals and do something work, or you could say, sitting down, resting, I'm going to work on my bitachon. I'm working on my trust in Hashem. Seems ludicrous. Like, why don't you go work on making more money? Go work on trying to find another deal. No, you don't need to work over there. Hashem says to Moshe, are you scared of a paroi? You're stressed out? See your paroi? Your paroi is the anxiety, right? I'm really stressed out. This is like, it's a phenomenal tool because it looks so counterintuitive. You don't need to fight paroi over there, fight him over here. You have a kid who's like giving you havoc, right? Giving you a really hard time. And you get stressed out, and whenever you meet the kid, you find yourself like just, there's always a fight and a war between you and her. Solution is, work on your connection to God. That's the solution. Work on your anxiety levels with the child. And so why are you worried? What are you worried about? What do you mean? God, my kid is... So what are you worried about? It's Hashem's child. You don't need to worry. You know what's going to happen? It's an unbelievable thing. When you stop worrying, the problem goes away. And then you're like, but how's the problem going to go away? Because Hashem tells Moshe, when there's a paroi and you're scared of him, I'm going to do the work. Let's go together. So you take a look at your anxiety that you feel over this child, over this business deal, over this situation. Take it back to its core and say, so it's causing me a level of anxiety. Work on your anxiety and then march forward without anxiety. It doesn't mean not to march forward. You still march forward. Go do another deal. Go talk to the child. Go forward, but don't worry. See, in Mitzrayim, we had hard work. It's called, they made us work. With mortar and bricks and all the work out there in the field. They made us work hard, right? The Balatanya says, you don't need to worry about the hard work in the field. You can bring that hard work to a space with Hashem. Hashem created the world. Hashem created all the problems. Hashem created all the issues. And if you just get into a space with Hashem, the problems go away. So, simple tool. Want to solve all the problems in life? Want to address the paroi? Monitor yourself all the time and say, what am I feeling now? What am I feeling? I'm feeling a little bit out. I'm feeling anxious. Okay, work on that. Work on why you're feeling anxious. Say, Hashem, feeling anxious. Feels like I'm scared. I'm stressed. You're not with me. Feel it? Hashem, you coming with me? Allow Hashem to come with you. And it's unbelievable. When you feel good, you'll notice the problems go away. the problems disappear automatically, and you're like, magically disappear. It's really unbelievable sometimes how when you're stressed, you draw stress to you. And when you're in a relaxed, happy state, you draw that to you. Take your pick. So we've got the 3 painters so far. You got it? Number 1, nothing is bad. Whenever it's bad, it's an opportunity for good. Number 2, whatever happens to you, start seeing the good things that are happening. Number 3, don't fight the negative forces out there. Fight the negative forces in your head and allow yourself to feel a serenity, one with God, and you'll see miracles. Painter number 4 was a success of the Baal Tanya, the Mitzvah Rebbe. What he said was that you have no choice. Why does Hashem do this to us? Right? Why does Hashem do this? What's he thinking? What does God want from us? Like, why does God make life so difficult? You know what he explained? Hashem wants the world transformed. And so you encounter all the obstacles in your life in order that you should be able to transform those obstacles. And it's your power that Hashem is giving you. But we have no choice. See, Hashem is. But through your drawing out Hashem's power, you reveal Hashem's presence everywhere. And so don't worry about, I'm encountering a difficulty nobody ever saw before. You're encountering an opportunity nobody ever saw before. And when you take that principle and you say, okay, but I don't have to worry about, I don't have to solve the problem. You don't need to solve any problem. You just need to solve the stress in your head. Solve the stress, the problem goes away automatically.
Also refine yourself as a person.
Yes. Work on yourself and your own powers in yourself. And you know what you'll see? The Tzemach Tzedek and Rabbi Maharash explained. Paroi not only stopped being an antagonist. What happened later on? Vayhi b'shalach Paroi esam. Who sent the people out? Paroi. Right? Remember the story? Paroi in pajamas in the middle of the night. Right? That whole story there. Paroi was like pushing them, go, 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 and he was giving them gifts and pushing them to go. Paroi needed the Jews to get out. Why? What you'll discover is your very problems, which look like an issue, not only are they not problems, they are the solution. Because understand this. Nobody ever makes an investment unless they plan to make money out of it. If you put in $100,000, you're expecting to get $1 million. Not the same 100,000. Hashem invested souls into a physical world. Who are they? You. And he's here because he wants to be revealed more than ever before. Your life is a space of making a dira, a home for Hashem. What you're doing is making a home for Hashem. And so as you're following the principles, what you're really doing is just creating Hashem's investment and making this world transform into a godly place. The world looks scary. No, it's not. It's just an opportunity to carve out a dira for Hashem. So let's run through this, right? Number 1, the Baal Shem Tov is nothing bad. It's all about the ability to make it into good, just how you frame it. Number 2, the Mizritcha Magid. What should you do with things? When things happen, realize it's all good. It's always working out for you. Number 3, the Baal Tanya says that stop having the fight in the fight. Start having the fight in your head. It's all about how you feel. Stop being anxious over anything. And you say, but I'm anxious because of that. Yeah, the problem is you're anxious. What you'll discover is when you stop being anxious, the problem goes away. The Mitzvah Rebbe follows through. He says, realize Hashem wants you to do it. And the Rebbe Rashab says also, he said, you've got to do the details. It's all the details, every step of the way. So every time something happens to you, it's another opportunity throughout your day to make Hashem's presence revealed. And when you do that, the Tzemach Tzedek and the Rebbe Maharash say, what you'll discover is that the world around you suddenly, inexplicably, starts helping you and aiding you in your service of Hashem. Because the world is really a good place. There are no problems in the world. There are only problems because you decided they're a problem. And the moment you start painting them as opportunity, then the problems just disappear. They wither away and they transform completely. Fascinating, you know. We try to teach our kids to be holy, right? We want them to be holy. And we don't want them to watch X-rated movies and to see images they shouldn't be seeing. Do you know what the best place to see all things you shouldn't see is? Just learn some Torah. The other day I was learning with my kids. They were learning Shmuel. So they asked me a question. They said, you know, King David married Abishag, but he wasn't able to marry her. So it says she was warming him up, and the king didn't know her. So what does it mean she was warming him up? This is my 8-year-old's asking me. What do you mean she's warming him up? So I said, well, she was sleeping with him, so she was warming him up. What? How could she do that? And he didn't know her? What does it mean to know her? And I'm like, yeah. I'm trying to keep him away from stuff, and the Torah is the one that's giving him all the realization of everything he needs to know.
So what did you say?
You know what I said? I explained to him exactly the situation. I gave him the vivid detail. Instead of running away from it, I just explained to him what happens and whatever, and how things go. You know, just without any need for any extras. Just explain what it was. And you know what he said? Okay. Fine.
Also, you're able to tolerate it in a holier sense.
Exactly.
What if he was 18?
The Gemara says in Tainus, there was a very beautiful woman. Her name was Rachav. Have you heard of Rachav?
Yeah.
Rachav, she was the one with Yerichoi. She actually married Yeshua. She was the most beautiful woman on earth. It says, whichever man would say the word Rachav, Rachav, would immediately experience an emission. So the Tana says, Rachav, 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 Rachav. Nothing's happening to me. So he says, yeah, you know why? Because it's only if you know her. If you don't know what she looked like, when you say Rachav, if you know what she looked like, then it's going to affect you. But if you know what she looked like, it won't affect you. Of course it won't affect you. So, Lubavitch Rebbe quotes his father. He says, here's another artist over there. The world can only affect you if you know it. If you are affected by it. But if you start realizing that you learn your Torah, learn Torah. And the Torah is about, you need to know what's going on in the world. The facts of life, if you see them in a movie, will have a very bad effect on you. You could see every fact of life in the Torah, and as long as you're learning Torah, it won't have the slightest effect on you whatsoever. What you want to do in life is envelop yourself in Hashem's presence. It's about starting to realize that in as much as I live life, I'm not affected by the things out there. I'm always, always, always in the beauty of Hashem's presence. So whilst it's true that I don't ask Hashem to give me nisyonot, I'm not asking Hashem to give me al tidvi'enu lidei nisayon, on the contrary. But I realize that no matter what happens, I'm always enveloped by the beauty of Hashem's presence. Enter the next artist, is Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Barditchev. And he explains that Baal Shem Tov would say, Hashem tzilcha, as the pasuk in Tehillim, Hashem is your shadow. Hashem is with you all the time. Hashem is absolutely present inside your life, and whatever happens, God is shading you and guiding you and controlling you, and there's never anything negative going on. All you're doing is revealing the presence of Hashem. And there you have all the artists. So watch, let's summarize it. When you have the impossible challenge, you know what's an impossible challenge? Because of the way you worded the question. I have an impossible challenge. Let's reword it and reframe it as an artist. And let's see, Hashem wants a dir tachtonim, he wants a home in this world. The only way to make a home in this world is by sending his neshamas into this world to deal with it and to overcome the world. That's you. So number one, sur meirav asei tov. Stop looking at things as bad and change them and label them as opportunities for good. Number two, everything is good. Whatever happens, there's sparks of goodness out there for you. Number three, don't fight. Go into the Torah, go into yourself and say, how am I feeling here? What am I feeling now? Feeling an anxiety? Okay, out of whack, Hashem, I know you're with me. Get rid of the anxiety. Don't get rid of the problem. Get rid of the anxiety that leads to the problem. That's the key. That one is the key. If you're feeling a feeling you shouldn't feel the feeling and say, Hashem, I feel you with me, even though you didn't solve the problem. And you got to do it, number 4, in specifics. It's got to be done time and again. It doesn't go away because you solved the problem yesterday. Tomorrow comes another problem. Today's another problem. It's an opportunity. Number 5 is the realization that the paroi is going to help you. The world will suddenly, when you're anxious over something, because you're anxious, it doesn't get solved. The second you flip the anxiety, suddenly you'll see, that thing which was a problem yesterday it'll help you in the most unbelievable way. The paroi himself will aid you in getting out of your Mitzrayim. That paroi himself, the power. Which leads us into, don't get to know the world. Know the Torah. Know Hashem. When you see a problem out there, say, okay, there's a problem out there. And they say I got to solve the problem. No, I don't. I got to go back into my own self and into my own being. And I'm able to work myself in the place. Because if you say Rachel and you don't know her, nothing's going to happen to you. And the next one is this realization that Hashem is your shadow. Hashem is your shade. Hashem's covering you all the time. And when you do, you get to the final artist, the Rebbe Rayatz himself, who said that our work in this world is the simplest thing in the world. It's just to polish the buttons before Mashiach comes. It's a last little work, just polish the buttons. Whilst the world looks impossible and looks like it's the worst possible say it's ever been to, it's not. It's the best place. And problems today can be solved like that, when the person who's solving the problem is in a good space. And you'll see all the biggest demons go away in no time at all when you start realizing that the world is Hashem's garden. So the painting is your rendition, how you view things, how you look at it. And when you start looking at it in a positive light, everything around you flips. The world changes. You start seeing miracles, and it's unbelievable. And you're like, how'd that happen? And then you realize it's all because the world was always Hashem's garden, and it was always about your special talent of being an artist.
Wow.